Hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast, where we are all about cultivating consciousness in the digital age. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast. Welcome to episode 51. What? We're going to be talking about motherhood in the digital age with Liz Bandy. So that will be coming up momentarily. Stick around for that. In the meantime, a couple of Nature Unplugged updates. What do we have going on? Well, a lot. A lot is going on. It's happening. Things are coming back. Pandemic's mellowing out, hopefully, ASAP. And we got a few things coming up. So first and foremost, right around the corner, we have a Nature Unplugged retreat, a digital detox retreat taking place in Mammoth Lakes, California. It's a really beautiful area if you have not been there, in the eastern Sierra Mountains. Extremely, extremely beautiful, and a wonderful place to spend a few days completely unplugged, a little digital detox. So we have an amazing place we're staying at up there. It's like 5-star accommodation, really incredible. And we're going to be doing this trip from Thursday, May 13th to Monday, May 17th. This is going to be a digital detox retreat. We're going to do things like snowshoeing, lake hopping, a little cold water action, maybe some hot spring dipping, definitely some hiking, yoga, mindfulness, and of course our Nature Unplugged curriculum will be mixed into it. There's going to be more information, or there is more information up on our website, www.natureunplugged.com. Check it out. Space is very limited, so we've got a few spots left, though, for this amazing, amazing digital detox experience. So check it out on the website. Also, in other news, we are rolling out, whatever you want to call it, a new wellness program. And we're super excited about this. We've been working on this for a long time, and it's launching in June, so in about a month and a half. It's called the Inu Wellness Program. And basically, this is a 3-month program that combines coaching with outdoor adventures, a really intentional kind of building of some of our curriculum from our book. And it's going to be a really cool thing. We're going to keep the numbers really small. So this is one-on-one work. Most of it's focused on adolescents, teens, young adults, and their families. So if you have a son or daughter or know a friend who is struggling with wellness in the digital age, struggling with gaming too much, social media, overuse, any of those things, this program is made for you. And again, there's a lot more details on our website. Check out www.natureunplugged. I will put a link to both the Mammoth Retreat and the wellness program in the show notes. So that's it for our Nature Unplugged updates. Here we go. We're going to talk to Liz Bandy, all things motherhood in the digital age. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast. I'm excited for this episode. We have a special guest. We're going to be talking all about motherhood in the digital age with our dear friend, Liz Bandy. Liz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So this episode is dedicated really to all the moms out there, right? With Mother's Day coming up right around the corner, Sunday, May 9th. This is very exciting. It's coming up. We're going to highlight motherhood in the digital age and talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, the whole kind of experience. So we're going to be talking with you, Liz, an all-star mom and mother of 2. And I'm excited to hear about your experiences, both being a mother and being in a partnership and a marriage and a full-time worker as well. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, sounds good. It's a fun topic, actually, and I think it's a nice time to kind of bring it up and address it and talk about some of the challenges and opportunities.
Totally. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it too. So before we dive in, I want to just say that we're friends. We've known you and your husband Riley for a long time, Sonia and I. Actually, this is kind of a cool Nature Unplugged full circle, but I think one of my first times I ever went camping was with your husband, Riley, my dear friend, and his dad, Tom. I was
Mm.
probably like 8 years old or something like that. So
Oh my
anyway,
gosh, that is a long time.
yeah, fun facts. I've known Riley forever. And, but I wanted to start off with just sharing. So could you just share a little bit about your background, where you're from, generally what you do, and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I'm from outside of Boston. I went to school in Baltimore and I went to grad school in Chicago. So lived in cities for a while. And after getting a journalism degree, I've worked in various capacities in mainly content creation, some reporting, some content marketing. Have worked for magazines, online publications, and all kinds of related media things. So a very kind of like plugged in type of work, I would say.
Right, right. And we know, Sonia and I know from personal experience that you are an all-star at what you do, and with writing and editing and all that stuff. I want to say full disclosure that you helped us edit our book, Experience Nature Unplugged, and we were very grateful for so you're hip to sort of what we do, and you rocked it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a really good book for anyone listening who hasn't read it yet.
Thanks for the the shout out. Okay, cool. So from the East Coast, and then what brought you out to San Diego?
So I moved to San Diego in 2012. Riley and I met in Chicago and we got engaged. And he had, right before getting engaged, moved back to San Diego. And then he inspired and encouraged me to follow him to the West Coast.
Wow, yeah, and we're very excited that you made the trip out west for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how long have you all been married? You don't have to
So we
generally
got
speak.
married in 2013. Yeah. So
2013.
we got married.
Okay, got it. And then you have two kids. Do you mind just sharing about, so we dive into the motherhood thing a little bit. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about your kiddos?
Yeah, so we have two girls. They are 5 and 2, and they're little bundles of energy, as
They
I'm
certainly
sure
are.
yeah, you can attest to, Sebastian. They, yeah, they're a lot of fun. They're both like really curious, really energetic, busy kids, and it's been a really weird time being their mom. The last year or so with everything going on in the world. But they've definitely, kept us kind of grounded and focused. And I guess it's been kind of a fun time too, to be a parent. So, but yeah, two little girls keeping us very busy.
Yeah. And so it's fascinating because I mean, not only is this, I think, a challenging time to raise kids just because of the amount of digital distractions and screens and all that time and all that stuff, and you add on top of that this past year the pandemic, obviously, and it just ramps things up so much. And it's interesting because Sonia and I, most of the people we work with, or the young people we work with, are a bit older, teens or young adults, and so your kids are quite a bit younger. Um,
Mhm.
I'm just curious to hear like what have been some of the biggest challenges of parenting in this digital age.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is monitoring all of the technology use and kind of consumption. And that's been especially hard during the pandemic because we've just been pulled in so many different directions. And with schools being closed and different things, and the kids home, and everybody trying to do everything that they need to get done, it's hard. Like I was talking with a friend of mine at the beginning of the pandemic who is a reporter, and he was saying that, and he's a dad, and he was saying a friend of his had previously had a screen time limit in their house of 30 minutes. And in the pandemic, he was like trying to keep it under 10 hours. And like that wasn't to be a joke, that was like serious,
Yeah.
just because the TV kind of became like a distraction for the kids in a helpful way for us to then be able to do what we needed to do, when we weren't able to have childcare as we normally would. So I think just like keeping tabs on what they're watching on TV specifically can be challenging. And then just with so many devices now, it's like we have an Alexa in our house, and I shouldn't even say that out loud because we'll get some type of response. But it's like, the kids engage with that very consistently, and it's fun for them to play music and engage with. But there's also a time where you want to kind of focus them and turn that off. So I would say that's one of the challenging things. Another thing I think just being a parent is you never feel like you can fully unplug if the kids are under someone else's watch. So, when they're at school, I always feel like I should be on call just in case something were to happen. So I know, we've talked in the past about some ways to unplug and setting your devices aside. And I think it can be hard to ever fully do that, when the kids like aren't home with us. Um, and then I think another challenging thing is that the technology just starts from the very beginning. It's like as soon as you become a parent, it's like now you need a baby monitor and there's a video
Right, right.
and it's all these things that you're like sort of made to think that you need. And getting pretty far away from the basics pretty quickly. It's like there's an app to like track when the baby has a bottle and
Right.
those types of things. So it starts really early. And I think it can be hard or it can be, yeah, just hard to, I think, manage all of those different things that are available. And people encourage you to use. So
Totally. Yeah. I mean, one thing that strikes me too is that uh, there's it. Your kids are young and they're so good with technology. Like I think this is just how it's made too. It's just something that is, and I think there's a pro to that and kind of a con to that as well. And I want to say just Liz before that wasn't really a question, but I wanted to say that I want to point out that as you know, we are not anti-tech, right? And there is certainly a time and a place, right, with a parent of young children. Like you can't fully, we totally get that you can't fully unplug. But there's, I think you've been really cool to talking with us about ways that you can, maybe just do it partially or do it as best you can.
yeah, definitely. And I don't think, I mean, yeah, it's not like we're trying to like, like leave our phone at home all weekend or whatever. But it would be, I mean, it would be nice. And I think it is nice to sort of like experience balance and set some boundaries for, where technology is helpful and welcome and then where these devices are, distracting and not providing a good influence, I think, on our house and family.
Right. Yeah. Well said. And so I imagine, right, the the story about your friend with this we heard this from a lot of parents, like screen time just goes out the window with the
Yeah.
pandemic. It was like not it was yeah, not even a thing to kind of consider monitoring anymore. And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that the pandemic also maybe opened up some opportunities for you to have potentially more get just sort of quality time, I guess outside of work with your kids, just because other stuff was closed down or there were just like I think less options of things to do. Was that the case for you all?
I definitely think, yeah, it was like a good opportunity for us to do lots of things outdoors, which we are fortunate to be able to have nice weather and a lot of, outdoor spaces that are accessible. And spend a lot of time with family and not be so, I mean, we just, yeah, we had to go back to like basic activities, which was actually pretty fun, like
Yeah.
Riley had a tent set up in the backyard. We called it like, summer camp Bandy. And it was just like, it was fun, a lot of outdoor stuff.
That's really cool. Would y'all stay out there overnight, or was it more like kind of a daytime refuge from the?
I think it was mostly during the day. We've done it a couple
Yeah,
times in the yard overnight, but yeah, usually we cut back in for the
that's
comforts of home.
yeah. No, that makes sense. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to camp when it's easier when you're far away from the comforts of the conveniences of you know modern day living.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you talked about some of the challenges of parenting or motherhood in the digital age. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the biggest successes that you've had around sort of motherhood and digital and screen time and all that?
One thing that I think is interesting and fun is the kids are just as engaged with other activities as they are with, media. It's just a matter of like setting them up for those opportunities. So we're lucky where we
Right.
have a lot of neighbors who have kids that are similarly aged. And so the kids all kind of pal around together and make up little games and have tea parties and do all kinds of things that are just like fun and really kind of basic. And they don't need a lot of like equipment or anything like that. We also love to just take walks. Like we have a little trail in our area where the kids like to walk, and we'll walk to like a destination, or we've actually used the scavenger hunts that you and Sonia have created, which are available for download. And it's fun to give a little bit of structure to those types of things too. And I think like
Right.
one of the successes is you don't have to just say like go play outside. I mean, kids will figure it out and they'll find ways to occupy themselves, but it's nice to kind of have an activity together where we're have a destination or have like some sense of purpose in what we're doing.
Right.
I think that gives them a little more like kind of just like guardrails around whatever it is, and it makes them more engaged with what we're doing because they know kind of here's the roadmap, um, and have a sense of expectation. So
Totally.
yeah, we've liked doing all of that. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, they love playing outside. They could do it for
Yeah.
hours. Like sometimes we have to like call them in because it's like dinner has been ready for an hour.
Yeah, I remember we came over just recently, and I have a very strong visual of driving into your neighborhood, and it was like a full-on it was just like kid mania, kids running around all over the place. I had to drive obviously very cautiously, but it was really cool to see that community. And I think as people are coming out of the pandemic, that's now an option. But the community and the outdoor play, and then your girls running around, they're like both barefoot, just charging around like maniacs. It was great to see them.
Yeah, it's nice because they really do like all of that. And I think it, even when given an option, I mean, I don't know. I guess I would have to do a little like experiment and see if I ask them, do you want to like watch a show or go play outside? I don't
Right.
know if they would necessarily choose the show. It's like if their friends are out, they want to be social and they want to hang out. So that's been encouraging for me to see.
Yeah, that is very cool. And that's something that we see too, I think, with some of the older kiddos is like there's initially, well, it doesn't sound like with your girls this is really the case, but there's often an initial pushback to the nature stuff, but then once, or to those types of non-screen activities, but then once the engagement, like after a few minutes and they're engaged, it's total, that other stuff is kind of out the window and they're fully present, fully there, and want to keep going.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, yeah, it's really cool to see. They're rambunctious little characters. Um, what are some? I think you spoke to this a little bit, but are there any like particular unplugged activities that you've had success with? Is that like kind of like you said, like having things that have a purpose, like scavenger hunts and things like that? Is that kind of what's been successful?
Yeah, I think some of the more structured activities, I mean, I'm talking a lot about things that are outside, but there are plenty of things that we do in our house too that are not like a technology related activity. And, like I've been trying to include the girls, like when I'm making dinner, for example, and try to teach them and show them, like, here are the different ingredients that we use to make pesto, like something simple so that they can kind of see and understand and help and have a hands-on activity, and helping to prepare dinner. And not necessarily things that like have to be chores, but they would just as soon enjoy like coloring and all types of things that are like considered more analog, I think. It's just a matter of like setting it up for them, and I think that's the challenging part, is that we're really busy. So making time to say I'm going to take 30 minutes and do this, or I'm going to you know print out some pictures for them to color. They love to like pick out their own coloring pages, and then they'll sit and color for, especially the older one, for a long time, which is
Right.
nice to see too, that it doesn't just have to be like a show all the time.
Totally. What do you are they called downloads? What are they, or printouts, or what do you call them at your house?
Yeah, I mean, we call them coloring pages.
Coloring page. That's right. Yeah, yeah, that's
My
right.
older daughter calls them copies. Yeah, she's more the
Copies. That's right. That's right.
copies. It's funny because it's like she doesn't differentiate between like a copy and a printout or whatever. But um, yeah, they
That's
like all of that. They like to be creative. So just providing activities where they can do that is, I think, I'm always happier when I do that for them and have a plan and set it up. And sometimes it requires me to go out of my way, like in the earlier part of the day, so that it's not just like the default activity is like, getting in front of the screen.
right. So it's all about preparation, and that's I think probably the challenge with so much going on. Is like how do you create that time to do that? But it's I mean I'll just say from our experience of visiting, it's really amazing to see when we come over. There's like pictures of the copies all over the wall, and it's like a full-on art museum, and there's coloring going on and analog games. And then you two, like, as you spoke to this, but I think it's important to give you a shout out, a special shout out for your cooking skills. And you're like something simple like pesto. I was like, I don't even know what's in pesto. But there, I mean, you do a great job of, I think, like embracing that process, and it's really cool that you can get the kiddos involved in that. And I think it's so important, as you said, to have them feel like they're contributing to the meal or part of the team. And I think it's just really cool to see that.
Thanks. Yeah, we have fun with it and giving them a sense of purpose and something to do, like a job. I think any parent would agree, is really helpful, and it sets them up for success too, to be able to do some things that are, on their level and ways that they can help, and they're really proud of that too, which is fun
Yeah,
to see.
for sure. Do you have any other favorite? You mentioned pesto. Uh, do you have any other favorite healthy dishes or like little snacks that you like to co-create with them?
I'm really lucky because my kids are not picky eaters, and I don't know if that's something that was like a nature or a nurture thing. Um, I don't know. I mean, just this isn't really like a specific thing, but I like to just make sure there's a lot of color on their plates. I think that's something that is just like a general good rule of thumb. I've never been one to like separate the kids' plates. I usually let them mix things up and
Yeah,
taste different combinations of things, which I think has made them less picky, probably. Um, they eat what we eat, which I think also is kind of a nice rule of thumb to expose them to a lot of different things. It's not like I make a separate meal for the kids.
for
Uh,
sure.
I don't know, things that I like to make with them. It's not a healthy meal, but they love spaghetti and meatballs. That's what we're having for dinner tonight.
That sounds great. Yeah. Wow.
Their favorites.
I
So
remember, yeah, it's really cool to see that too. Like right, I think some families may, not talking smack about this, but like, right, that idea of a full separate sort of toned down meal for the kids, where I think I was over last time we were over, your younger one was really eating things like beets and all these different things and super into
I
it.
love
No,
beets.
she loves beets. Yeah. Which is
Beets,
really
they'll
cool.
eat it with the goat cheese. It's like, I don't know. I'm always amazed because you don't know until you try. I mean, that's true of all of us, but I always encourage them to have one bite of something, whatever it is, even if they
Yeah.
don't like the look of it or something.
Right.
Because so often, the older one now will kind of be like, she'll have the smile on her face because she said she wasn't going to like it, but then she clearly does. Like,
Yeah, the internal battle of do I, tell
admit
mom that
it
I
because
enjoyed
I
it?
want
Yeah,
another bite.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, it's really cool. The Bandy household and all the cooking and all the creativity and stuff. And so we've been talking a lot about, your relationship with your kids, in terms of screen time and stuff, but I'm curious to ask, what are some of your biggest challenges as an individual with screen time and or technology, and in your partnership, with Riley, or challenges and successes around that, just stepping away from the motherhood thing for a second.
I mean, I think just being able to like separate from it is really hard, especially because we both are working and there are lots of different like things that come in around the clock,
Right.
where it feels like you're always having to like stay on top of things. I mean, in reality, it's like there are certain periods of time where nothing is going to break, if we're not checking in for a couple hours. And I do think just like being able to have a time when we're not like on our phones is important.
That was good
Speaking
time.
of
That was great timing.
perfect. We're pretty big on no phones at the dinner table. So we try to eat
Yeah.
dinner together every single night. And that is a time when we're definitely not plugged in.
Yeah.
And the kids, I think, are in that habit too. So, not that they have phones, but just like they're not used to seeing us on our phones at that time, which is sort of like a special time for us. And I hope we can continue that. I know things are going to get so much more busy as the kids get older. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is just being able to step away from it and not feel like where it's like missing out on something
Right.
or with the news, or maybe it's like kind of the journalist in me, but that's kind of like a dynamic, you know, 24-hour cycle that doesn't really stop at any
Right.
time. So
Yeah.
most of what I do now is like much more project based, but some of those old habits die hard, I think.
For sure. And that's, yeah, I think we're all dealing with it. It's hard to step away, whether it's the news or, yeah, just the FOMO. It's real, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, like during the pandemic, we're all kind of looking for something,
Right.
and so it's just a place to turn where it's like, what else is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. A, uh, a bit of a distraction. Totally. Yeah. I hear you on that. Um, I wanted to ask too, so I mentioned this before, but a lot of the people that we work with are a little bit older, and I'm just curious to hear, like, do you have any particular like hopes or aspirations for your daughters as they get a little older and sort of enter the teenage years in terms of their relationship with, I guess, with both technology and nature?
Um, I hope the pendulum swings back away from so much social media. I know that's just so challenging for parents of older kids, um, and being so, plugged into these networks where things are followed almost in real time. Um, yeah, I hope it's cool to not be, on your phone all day by the time my kids are a little bit older.
I
I
do.
think that's probably
Yeah.
wishful thinking.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I see with some of the folks we work with that. I mean, there's traces of that. I think out. Just kind of questioning what is this all about. But yeah, I hope that too.
I mean, there are also just like real challenges around one thing, for example, that I've thought about is we don't have a landline anymore. So
Right.
how will my kids make plans with their friends if
Right.
when I was growing up, someone would call and ask to talk to me and and there would be an answering machine, for our family. And so that, I mean, maybe that's something that we just need to like do again is like get a landline, but it's, how do you kind of slow that process down of kids on phones and having phones and enable them to kind of like be kids without so much technology at their fingertips.
Totally. I think that's a real tension with, parents of teens or tweens or whatever, when it's that the tension of wanting to hold those boundaries, but then also not wanting them to miss out on social things and to be a part of whether it's like text chat or learning about so and so's party or whatever. That's a really tough thing to work with.
Yeah, right. Not wanting to limit them, but also not wanting it to be so much for them to
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, Liz, lots of wonderful information already. And I want to, so you may know this, but we like to do some sort of a nature unplugged challenge with the podcast, or like a tip, a challenge thing that listeners can put into practice right away. So we were thinking it would be cool to do a nature unplugged Mother's Day edition challenge. And so I was wondering if you had any like tangible or actionable things. I think you've mentioned a lot of these already, but that uh, one thing that families could do together on Mother's Day in particular. Anything come to mind for you?
I think all the moms would love it if whatever you're doing on Mother's Day, you leave your phone in the car.
I love
If
it. Yeah.
you do something in nature, go out to brunch, for us, like I mentioned, the dinner table is kind of like a sacred place, and we always have family dinners together. It's kind of like you guys would call it a phone-free zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find a place for your phone and spend time with your mom. Without those types of distractions, I think it would be kind of eye-opening and fun, especially for those of us who tend to be pretty plugged in.
I love it. Liz, thank you so much. That is a great tip. So whatever you do, regardless of what it is, brunch, an outing, phones in the car, leave your phones at home as much as you can. Thank you very much. That's a great tip. I love it. Do you all have any, or maybe it's a secret, do you all have any plans for Mother's Day this year? It's coming up. It's a little ways away.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think there is some type of little surprise in the works, but luckily the kids have been, I don't know, lip sealed. They haven't spilled it yet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There's something in the mix, I'm sure. Well, Liz, thank you so much. Maybe I was just thinking this. Maybe we could have Riley on for Father's Day.
There you go.
Just like, yeah, get the other side of the partnership in the mix. Well, Liz, I really appreciate you taking the time from your very busy schedule, both with work and parenting and motherhood and all the different things that you do, cooking, wonderful things. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, looking forward to the next hangout, doubles tennis, perhaps soon. Looking forward to getting into it.
Can't wait.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Nature Unplugged podcast. You can find our episodes on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, basically wherever you want to get your podcasts. If you could take a moment to rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, that would be hugely appreciated. And be sure and check out www.natureunplugged.com. We actually, Liz, this is interesting. We relaunched the website actually just now. So kind of a new look, rebranding. So check it out for upcoming workshops, coaching, presentations, retreats, things like that. New website, check it out. And of course, you can find more detailed show notes on our website. Well, that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. We will catch you next time. And in the meantime, remember to experience nature unplugged, especially this Mother's Day.
Things change like seasons out of our control. If you think you should go, I will let you go.